Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today we are diving into the book Amazing Decisions, the illustrated guide to improving business deals and family meals. Written by behavioral economist Dan Ariely and illustrated by Matt R. Truer, this is definitely not your standard dry business textbook. It's actually a graphic novel. It takes all this complex neuroscience and psychology and turns it into these hilarious, completely relatable human moments. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a core concept from the book that dictates pretty much every interaction we have, and we'll specifically look at how leaders can use this science to, honestly, completely transform workplace loyalty and drive some serious innovation. So let's just dive right into it. Okay, picture this. Imagine you go over to your mother-in-law's house for this massive, beautifully cooked holiday dinner. You finish up, push your chair back, stand up, whip out your wallet, and ask, "Wow, that was incredible. How much do I owe you? Is $50 enough?" Just sit with that for a second. Imagine the instant, freezing silence that would follow. You haven't just made things awkward. You have deeply, deeply insulted her. But why is that an insult exactly? Well, think about it. If you were in a restaurant and you just left without paying, you'd be a thief, right? In a restaurant, paying money is a compliment. But at a family dinner, it's a completely offensive breach of conduct. And this super awkward scenario perfectly highlights the core behavioral economics concept we're exploring today. It's all about these invisible boundaries that govern our everyday interactions. Ariely and Strauer argue that we're basically always navigating two entirely parallel worlds, and almost all of our human friction comes from confusing those two worlds and totally mixing up their rules. Section 1. Two worlds, social versus market norms. All right, so let's break down exactly what these two forces are. First up, we've got social norms. These are the rules driven by human connection. We're talking generosity, trust, gratitude, and reciprocity. They're warm, they're fuzzy, and they are definitely long-term. Under social norms, there's absolutely no immediate payback required. A classic example? Helping a friend move on a Saturday. You don't ask for an hourly wage, you do it for the price of a cold beer, a slice of pizza, and just that unspoken understanding that, hey, they'll have your back someday down the road. On the flip side, we have market norms. Now, these are the rules driven by transactions. It's all about prices, penalties, cost-benefit analysis, and explicit contracts. These are sharp, transactional, and immediate. Under market norms, you get exactly what you pay for. The equivalent here would be hiring a professional moving company for, say, $150 an hour. You don't offer the movers a slice of pepperoni pizza in exchange for the heavy lifting, you just pay the invoice. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the central tension in our daily lives. The problems really start to pop up when we apply that sharp, immediate market logic to situations that actually require warm, long-term social connection. When we treat a relationship like a business deal, or, and this is a big one, when we try to motivate people with money when trust is what actually matters, things go completely off the rails. And honestly, this happens in the workplace all the time. Section 2. The daycare paradox, when fines fail. To really see what happens when these two worlds awkwardly collide, let's look at this famous real-world experiment cited in the book. It involves a group of daycares that were struggling with a super common problem, parents picking up their kids late. So the daycares decided to use a classic market solution. They introduced a cash fine to penalize late arrivals. But look at what happens. The tardiness actually doubled after the fine was introduced. Rationally, you'd expect a fine to reduce the bad behavior, wouldn't you? But instead, it got exponentially worse. Why? Well, because before the fine, parents were operating under social norms. They felt guilty for making the teachers stay late. But the absolute second that money was introduced, it shifted the entire situation into a market transaction. The guilt completely vanished. Parents just felt like they were buying an extra 30 minutes of babysitting for a few bucks. The financial penalty literally erased the social obligation. So what do you think the chances are of fixing that? 0. Literally 0. That represents your chance of successfully reverting a relationship back to a social norm once you introduce a market norm. Ariely calls this the golden rule of behavioral collision. Once you cross that boundary, it is almost impossible to uncross. You can't start paying a friend to help you move, realize it feels weird, and then try to go back to just offering pizza. That transactional dynamic is permanent. Section 3. The corporate trap, the workplace loyalty dilemma. Let's bring this right into the workplace, which brings us directly to any leaders watching this explainer. You really have to ask yourself, are you accidentally monetizing your relationships with your employees? Are you unknowingly destroying their sense of social responsibility by applying the wrong norms? Here is a totally classic corporate trap. Companies absolutely love to say, hey, we're like a family here. Now, that is a heavy social norm. But when employees put in massive extra effort, how does the company usually reward them? With a cash bonus, a strict market norm. Ariely points out that giving cash simply forces the employee to calculate exactly how much their extra overtime was worth per hour. It drives them straight into a transactional mindset. On the other hand, giving a thoughtful non-monetary gift, like maybe an all-expenses-paid weekend getaway, well, that builds a lasting social bond and genuine, deep loyalty. So the crucial point is this, and I really want this to sink in. Research in behavioral economics shows that introducing money as a motivator in the wrong situation actually crowds out goodwill. It's astonishing, but giving a financial bonus can sometimes result in lower overall motivation than simply looking an employee in the eye and saying a genuine thank you. When trust and meaning are what actually matters, cash incentives are often way less effective than genuine, non-monetary appreciation. Section 4. The Leadership Playbook. Applying social norms. So, how do we actually fix this? If you're a manager or a business owner, how do you design your workplace culture knowing what we now know about human behavior? Well, you need a totally new playbook. If you want to foster deep workplace loyalty and drive true innovation, you've got to stop relying solely on market incentives. You need to strategically inject social norms right into your culture. This means leading with flexibility and empathy. It means establishing mutual trust, building a shared sense of purpose, and leaning heavily on thoughtful, non-monetary rewards. Building a brand and a workplace around these social elements creates an environment where people are actually passionate, rather than just clocking in to collect a paycheck. I love this specific quote from Dan Ariely, highlighting the spirit of the law. Instead of writing tighter, overly specific contracts that basically mandate every single behavior, which again is a heavy market norm, Ariely argues for looser, incomplete contracts. By giving people flexibility and genuinely trusting them, you allow them to use their own judgment. You're treating them like adults in a social community, and that inspires them to do the right thing at the right time simply because they actually care. Ultimately, you really only have two choices as a leader. If you strictly stick to market norms, if everything is just a transaction, a metric, or a penalty, your people are going to give you exactly what they are paid for, and not a single ounce more. But if you cultivate strong social norms, you unlock their full human potential. You get innovation, you get passion, and you get the kind of deep, unwavering loyalty that money literally cannot buy. I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on today. Think about your own life, your team, your clients. Are you leading with human connection, or are you accidentally treating every interaction like a transaction? Think about where you might be applying market norms to a situation that desperately needs a social touch, and what you can do to change that tomorrow. Thanks for exploring the invisible forces that shape our decisions, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.